lies! You're just saying that to trick me again! From the moment I was brought here, everyone despised me. I tried, but it was over before it started!
So even if the whole world speaks ill of you, I'll tell them they're wrong. I'll defend you.
Greetings once again, my friends, and welcome back to Geek News Marathon Night, where we take a series, we watch episode by episode, but in chunks, and we give our thoughts on the episodes that we have watched, in this case, for the first season of Rising of the Shield Hero, which, safe to say, is turning out to be a fairly good season, my lovely wife, Andrea. Am I right in saying that?
Yep.
Are you having any regrets about watching this?
No.
No? I have to keep asking it, because... you know, this is an honest thing that people ask. So, at that point, I am your host, Adam Mickelson, as I just barely said. My lovely wife, Andrea, is joining me, and let's get into this. So, this week, in previous weeks, we've had, a good Shield Hero set and a bad Fruits Basket episode. And by bad, I mean, not much happened. And then we've had the flip, where a lot happened in Fruits Basket, but not much happened in Shield Hero. Is it safe to say we picked the momentum back up in this one? Did you feel the momentum had gone down in the previous episodes?
No, I think it picked up, but...
yeah, but, there really wasn't anything much else happening aside from Naofumi going around fixing the other heroes' mistakes.
Oh, yeah.
Except the bow hero. We never figured out the bow hero in that last session. So at that point, let's go ahead and start things up with episode 10. Okay, so let's go ahead and start things up with episode 10, In the Midst of Turmoil. So we start things up with our lovely crew, all in the weapon shop, after the revelation that Melty is the crown princess of Melremark. And Naofumi has not taken the news very well. Because to him, F the royal family. He hates them for what they did to him. And even though Melty has been good on their journey, when he finds out that she's a royal, he basically lumps her up with mine. Which I think we both kind of agreed, not a fair assessment. Maybe something that Naofumi needs to work on, but he's made up his mind. He's already said to Philo, "You can't hang out with Melty anymore. She's a bad influence." And even Raftalia is kind of pointing out to him, is this just based on the fact that you don't trust the royal family? Because you're hurting Philo for no other reason. And the episode starts up after these discussions with, if you remember from the previous episode, one of the knights was trying to chase Naofumi down, and he didn't really know why. Well, that same knight, along with 3 others and 2 mages, two spellcasters, come in, and all of them, by the way, are from Loot Village. The village he saved in the previous wave. And as we find out also at the beginning of this episode, or in this episode, it's 10 days?
Yeah, it's
10 days. 10 days before the next wave. So at that point, all of these members of Loot Village come in, and these are the same people that we've seen when the castle guards look down on the shield hero. They're like, well, he's helping out our village. So do we really have to treat him badly? And they all openly offer to be his party members when the waves are happening. Because unfortunately the knights have to still work in the castle guard, so they still have those duties. But they offer to be his party members. This would be good news, right? Nobody was willing to be a party member to Naofumi, and that's how mine got to abuse him. Well, Naofumi decides, okay, well, I don't know if I really need you guys, so I'll give you a little test. If you want to be my party members, takes out a necklace. You have to buy this for 150 silver. To which this is another reaction where Raftalia and Philo feel like he's being unreasonable. And along with, by the way, Erhard, the blacksmith. You were wondering if he had a name. It's Erhard. I knew that he got named, but I couldn't remember when. So they all are like, yeah, that's a little stupid, especially when they admit that necklace isn't great. But the villagers basically look at him and say, we will get 150 silver coins by the next wave so that we can help you. Because this is their challenge. This is, like he says, if you buy this from me, you can be my party members. Kind of thing. And Naofumi isn't really taking any of the criticism. He's not dealing with any of it.
Oh, yeah, well, you know, and when you've been cheated and accused of and all that stuff, you wouldn't blame him for, you know, like, well,
no, not at all.
I need to see if your loyalty is, you know.
Not at all, but let me ask you, I asked you this question last night, too. I'll ask it here. Do you think he's taking it a little too far?
Not to some degree, you know. I mean, I wouldn't want to, you know, I'm pretty sure there are people who've probably tried to take advantage of it. It's like, no, I'm watching my own back.
Okay, so you are not on Raftalia or Philo's side on this one. You're on Naofumi's side.
Yeah, but, you know, I mean, for the most part, but...
Okay, no, it's just an honest assessment. Mm-hmm. Because here's the thing. When I first watched the series, I was right where you were. I honestly thought Raftalia and Philo were being very naive in their viewpoint. I get it. You have to be kind to others and all that. But we are talking about he's been thrown into a world he doesn't want to be in. And on top of that, that world has rejected him and basically made him out to be a zero. They want nothing to do with him. And so at that point, I was totally on Naofumi's side. Because this world has shown its dark side, and the dark side is what matters. Kind of thing. In the second viewing, I kind of see where Raftalia and Philo are coming from, but I still am siding with Naofumi, given what he's had to go through. So to change the subject, Naofumi decides to ask Erhard a question because he's noticed in his game interface that Raftalia and Philo have these little stars next to their level. And so he's like, well, what does this mean? And this is another one of those weird deals where they know the game mechanics that he's talking about, but they probably shouldn't. But Erhard is like, oh, what that basically means is that both Philo and Raftalia are eligible for a class upgrade. This is basically the equivalent of, if people know how D&D works, I'll explain it to you really quick, Andrea. In terms of D&D, there is a level cap in tabletop RPGs. But the way that D&D handles it is like your first 10 levels, you're a regular adventurer. And then in levels 10 through 20, it's where you... it changes between the versions, but it's basically you do a class upgrade, and you in turn basically you upgrade your class into a variant, and you go on even tougher adventures. And then when you hit level 20, you have to pick an epic destiny. Like this is your role, like this is your character's role in life, and how you will ascend into godhood. And then when you hit level 30, you're a god, basically. In D&D. The same principle is applied here. So Raftalia and Philo can do a class upgrade. But you have to go to the Dragon Hourglass to do it. They have to go back to the church. Not the most thrilling notion for Naofumi. So he takes Raftalia and Philo to the Dragon Hourglass and is told by the nuns there that he has to pay 15 gold pieces per class upgrade. Which, as Raftalia kind of points out, is an atrocious price. What did you think of that price?
Oh, that must have been pretty expensive, but I was always wondering whether or not, were they just trying to stiff him out of money? Like, if that was the real...
Was that the first thing that kind of came to your mind?
Like, is that the actual price that they would charge every...
Kind of like the holy water, where they tried to give him the cheapest and see if you'd notice.
Oh, yeah. And you wonder if any of the other the heroes, if they upgraded, and if they were charged the same amount, or if that was just...
Yeah, it makes you wonder, right? Because we don't have that comparison. But then we find out after so unfortunately they only have enough money to do one class upgrade. So Naofumi chooses Raftalia and says, Philo, when we come back again, we'll get yours. And he hands the money over, but then one of the other nuns says, unfortunately, we can't do your class upgrade, and shows a royal edict that the king has basically said the church is not allowed to aid the shield hero.
Oh my gosh.
First of all, how the fuck does he even have that right?
Mm-hmm.
Because this is the king.
The king is just too biased.
The religion does not respond to the king. They respond to the Pope, which we've met in this series.
Even the Pope.
And the Pope even basically said, no, give him the good holy water.
Yeah, so it's like...
Yeah, we can't play tricks on him. Go and get the good holy water. And so at that point, it kind of made you wonder if the Pope had stepped out, would he have let them do the class upgrades? Don't know. But doesn't matter because they get shoved out the door. And this pisses off Naofumi. So Naofumi's pissed off for two major reasons right now. He can't class upgrade Raftalia, and he just realized that this little girl he's been helping out is part of the demonic royal family that keeps screwing him. So he decides to go to the slave merchant because, again, like, I know that some people have a problem with this, but he's been ostracized from society. So where else is he going to go?
Mm-hmm.
You've given him no other choice but to go to the black market. And so he goes to the slave trader, and the slave trader basically says, unfortunately, I can't do that for you, but if you go to another country, you can do it at their Dragon Hourglass, because each country has one.
But you would question on whether or not if Naofumi chose to accept Melty's offer and stuff, do you think she could have override the nuns?
It makes you wonder, doesn't it?
You know, and say, no, I give permission for him to get the class upgrade.
It's a good question. One that the episodes that we have don't really answer. They basically make it look like the Crown Princess can't override the king. But we don't know that. Because, again, this is a matriarchy, and like it makes it look like the king has authority, but then you see Melty basically, pushing in certain directions. It makes you wonder that maybe she has. Because as we find out, the reason she was on her journey was the queen sent her to the castle to chastise the king over his treatment of the shield hero. So at that point, maybe she could have, because she had the queen's orders. But we don't know. And unfortunately, these episodes don't answer that. But it makes you wonder, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It does make you wonder. So back to the slave trader. So he says you can go to another country, but going to another country would take months. And they have less than, or they only have a few more days before the wave hits.
Yeah, it'd be like, what, 2 weeks? 2 to 4 weeks if you go by boat.
Yeah, 2 weeks if you went by ship, and then 4 weeks if you went by carriage.
Yeah.
But even Earhart kind of admits that if Philo really pushes herself, you could probably make it in less time. The other thing that also happens is because they are not able to figure out this problem, the slave trader offers to give Philo an upgrade, basically some talons or some actual like metal claws for her talons. And so that's an interesting thing. And he even gives them the opportunity to test out the talons by going to kill some monsters in the sewers, which is helpful, except for the fact that Naofumi got covered in poop water. Poor Naofumi. So ultimately, we pass off a lot of time in the middle of this because they also say, like, well, it's 10 days before the wave. We need to go get medicine. We need to get weapons. We need to get armor. We need to do everything we can to be able to help out the villages because we're not going to go play the other heroes' games. We're going to go and help the people, kind of thing. And ultimately, time passes, and it is it's minutes before the wave, and they have everything ready. Oh, actually, no, it's hours before the wave, and they have everything almost ready, and then the villagers come back, and they have their 150 silver coins, and it's a big bag, and they're just like, we were able to finally scrounge up 150 silver coins for you. And Naofumi looks at them, and it looks like he's still not going to accept them. But he basically looks them in the eye, gives them the pendant, and says, go and use that to go buy equipment for yourself. So we all thought he was going to be like total dick to them. And in turn, he basically said, go get yourself some equipment, and then come back here and we'll strategize.
Yeah, he's like, well, you kind of proved that you were actually...
So basically, like, his interface gets lit up with, what is it? Yeah, six people on his party now. So he has like a full row of people that are helping him out. Yay, the shield hero has a party. How did you feel about that? He finally got a party. I mean, I'm not saying anything bad about Raftalia and Philo, but now he has like a bunch of other people helping.
Well, it's good,
Yeah, so now he has roughly the size of a party that like the other heroes have. So that's definitely helpful.
At least there are some people that will support him when they, in this need.
Yep, and that's actually where this episode ends. So, what did this episode do right? What did this episode do wrong? I think we covered it all.
Yeah.
It's just you're starting to have a little bit of a focus that like maybe Naofumi's hatred is blinding him, and so it makes you feel bad, but it's warranted, as you're kind of pointing out. It's still warranted given what he's had to go through. But it has a nice ending where, he's willing to let the villagers help him. And he's basically taking on the waves in a different way than the other heroes are. So you at least get that. Character of the episode.
Naofumi.
Yeah, I'd go with Naofumi, because it starts where you think like nothing's really going to change with him, and then ultimately
he finds his own way to...
Yeah, he finds his own way to be able to do it, and then everybody is like, oh, he's such a nice guy. Out of 5, what would you give this?
I would give it a 4.5.
Yeah, I'd be there. Like 4.5, something like that. It's got a lot of good moments.
Mm-hmm.
So I would definitely do that. Okay, and then we move into episode 11, Catastrophe Returns. So, it is 5 minutes before the wave happens. And everybody's saying their goodbyes. We even find that Naofumi has made new jewelry for both Philo and Raftalia to give them increases in either, mana regen for Raftalia and an increase in speed for Philo.
Mm-hmm.
Because he gives Raftalia a bracelet and he gives Philo a hairpin?
Or something like
that. Yeah, that'd be like a hairpin, right? So at that point, they all get teleported to, funny enough, the village where the sick grandma was. And immediately, Naofumi's crew gets to work. They start evacuating the villagers. And in fact, we actually find them evacuating the last one. So now they can focus on the monsters. They don't have to worry about anything else. And Raftalia and Naofumi start looking for like the big monsters to see if maybe they could start tackling them. And then we get the most unusual sight, which is the grandma that Naofumi healed. Turns out she was an elite adventurer back in the day, and she was an amazing monk. Or martial artist. So this would be the D&D equivalent of a monk. Yeah, thoughts on Kung Fu Grandma?
It was just unexpected to see that.
It was 100% unexpected to see that.
She kind of reminds me of, what's her name from Full Metal Alchemist?
Which one?
The teacher. I can't remember.
Oh, it's not Isuzu. Izumi.
Yeah,
Izumi
she
Kurtis.
just reminds me of her.
Yeah, a little bit.
Some way.
A little bit. So, basically, the loot villagers as well as Kung Fu Grandma. She is affectionately now named Kung Fu Grandma. They all say, go take care of the wave. Like, we need to stop this. This is going to get worse. You need to find a way to end it. We'll take care of the rabble down here. And as Naofumi and Raftalia and Philo are looking for whatever is causing it, off in the distance, they see a giant pirate ship just floating in the air. It's a Final Fantasy game all of a sudden. And so they go, maybe we'll start there. And they actually run. Oh, you know what? We forgot to mention this part too, but this'll come into play with this episode. We forgot this moment in the inn. So they're back at the castle at the inn, and we get to see the sword and the bow hero talking about how, I guess, when they went to go do their tasks, like killing the dragon and all that for the guild, they never got paid for it.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're pissed that they never got a reward for it, that the jobs got retracted, all that stuff. Like, they are super pissed about it. Naofumi is in there with Raftalia and Philo, and he hears them do that, and he basically does a spit take. And this is basically a scene where the bow hero and the sword hero confront him over the fact that they didn't get their money or their reward from the guild. And this is where he basically says, like, you've screwed things up, kind of thing. So he confronts Ren and basically says, well, you killed that thing, but you didn't properly dispose of it. And the illness that happened because of the village was because you didn't do anything about it. So that's why they canceled their money order to the guild, and Ren didn't get rewarded. And in the case of the bow hero, we actually come across a village that is basically in ruin. All of the villagers are so hungry, they're basically selling, stuff in their house to be able to eat. And Naofumi sets up an emergency kitchen for them. And it turns out that this was the neighboring country that the bow hero was helping overthrow their tyrannical dictator. But as we find out, like, maybe the dictator wasn't as tyrannical as they made him out to be. And because of the fact they ousted him, and it takes a lot of money to run a country, that they basically walked into the same problem. So we have that moment, and this actually kind of goes into this episode because Ren, he doesn't hate Naofumi, but he's a little mad about it. Bow hero is very mad.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember his name off the top of my head. I want to say it's Itsuki or something like that. But so they run into the bow hero, and the bow hero is with another archer in his party, and they're just firing at the ship. And Naofumi's like, "Well, what the heck are you doing?" Supposedly there is a soul guardian, or I can't remember what they actually called it.
Soul Eater?
No, Soul Eater is something that happens later. It was like a soul guardian or something like that. And apparently the sword hero and the spear hero are up on the ship trying to destroy it. So Naofumi, Philo, and Raftalia immediately head up to the ship to see that Motoyasu and Ren are fighting because there are two big enemies on the ship, and one of them will unlock the Soul Guardian, and they don't know which. And so basically, Ren has decided to attack the ghost ship captain, and Motoyasu is attacking, I can't remember what it was, it's something, or he was attacking the big Hydra that's like on the ship as well. So, and they're both just arguing with each other like, no, you need to take out this thing, this will unlock it. And Naofumi comes in and basically is the voice of reason, saying, you both are wrong because it's still not coming out, but does notice that there's something wrong with the captain's shadow. And so he has Raftalia cast a light spell. They find out that the Soul Guardian is like the shadow. So at that point, he has Raftalia kill the shadow, and Ren follows suit along with Motoyasu, and they unlock the Soul Guardian. And the Soul Guardian is basically a raid boss. He's very tough for all of them. And Motoyasu and Ren and Itsuki at this point, who the bow hero, he comes up to the ship. They are all getting trounced. Like their big attacks are not doing anything against this thing's health. Like we see the health bar going down, but it's like trickling. It's barely going down, safe to say.
Mm-hmm.
So Raftalia is able to do a little bit more, but not by much. Like her and Philo are maybe taking like a tad bit more, but not enough to do significant damage. So Naofumi unfortunately decides, okay, I have to use the Rage Shield, which is the curse shield that he used for the dragon. Let me make sure I said that right. The Rage Shield, which Raftalia is not happy about, but says, it's okay, I'll be here with you. And so he unlocks the Rage Shield, which takes him over a little bit more. Safe to say.
Yeah.
So much so that it actually engulfs his armor a little bit. Did you notice that?
Mm-hmm.
It was like one arm, but not the other one, where his arm looks like, the Dark Lord Sauron. So you have that happening, and he's dealing with these visions of, like, people he hates and trying to maintain calm while having the shield out. Unfortunately, he's still not doing that much damage to them either. And after having to deal with the visions for so long and losing himself, and Raftalia brings him out, he finally unlocks... I'm not even sure what he unlocked, honestly. He somehow finds the power to be able to do a triple shield combo. So he takes the Dimensional Guardian and puts him in a shield prison, then does a change shield, which I'm guessing is like it sent spears into the Guardian in the shield prison, and then somehow summons a giant Iron Maiden to come and crush the Dimensional Guardian.
Yeah.
We're not sure how he got the power for this, but we do know that he was like confronting the zombie dragon who gave him some new hatred, but we don't know how like this combination happened. And also obviously all the other heroes are like, the crap just happened. Well, the episode ends with the Dimensional Guardian trying to take a final shot at the shield hero and gets killed by a mysterious woman wielding a weapon, like a fan as in a weapon. So like metal fans that are blades. And that's where the episode ends. Is this mysterious woman is now challenging Naofumi, and we don't know much else other than that. So, final thoughts on Catastrophe Returns. What was good about it? What was bad about it?
I thought it was just really good overall.
It was really good overall. I did like the fact that they kind of made an emphasis that, like they did with the previous episode, where the other heroes are still looking at this like a video game. And it also kind of looks like, we thought that they had a whole lot of power, and it looks like compared to the shield hero, they don't.
Mm-hmm.
Was I the only one that got that feeling?
Yeah.
Because it looked like the strongest abilities they had were thunder-based attacks, and those did nothing against this Guardian, and then they would pull out other attacks, and they would do less. So at that point, if maybe I'm wrong, it feels like the other three are weaker.
Yeah. At least they don't seem quite...
They don't seem as powerful as, say, Raftalia. Because Raftalia is still able to do, like, significant damage here. And in some cases, she kind of shows up Ren. Safe to say?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she kind of shows up Ren. Even Mind, when she eventually kind of shows up, like, she's, still playing her same game of the Devil of the Shield, but then you see Motoyasu trying to take something out, and it looks like Philo and Raftalia are having no issues, but Motoyasu is having all kinds of issues. So yeah, I'm kind of getting the feeling that maybe they're weaker than Naofumi, but no confirmation on that. I would say one bad of this was just all the bickering. all the bickering was so stupid between the other heroes. And, like, I know that Mine hates the shield hero and wants to constantly bring up his mistakes. I have air quotes here. But is this really the time to be bringing that up when you're being attacked by a giant Hydra and a zombie captain and then eventually a dimensional guardian that's going to eat your soul?
It wouldn't be the best time, but
no, they were finding reasons to squabble.
I know.
And not Naofumi. Like, it was the other heroes that were finding reasons to squabble with Naofumi. So that was kind of irritating. Character of the episode. It's kind of tough to call on this one.
I know, between Naofumi and Raftalia.
I would almost say, yeah, both. Either that or, like, you give one and I'll give the other. Because they were kind of the highlight of it. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna throw a left hook here. Kung Fu Grandma. Kung Fu Grandma is the character of the episode because nobody saw that coming. I especially love that when, you know, she's saying, you know, I could totally take these guys on like in my adventuring days. And Naofumi just kind of looks down at his bushes like, what did I give her? I thought that was a nice touch.
I just like it when Raftalia was like just telling the other heroes and their party members, it's like, are you guys just gonna sit there?
Yeah,
you guys could fight too.
Yeah, it was interesting having Raftalia lecture the other heroes, wasn't it?
Because she's like, you know, well, he can't even really fight, he can only mostly defend, and yet he's the one who's like,
yeah,
taking it head on.
And then also, like, other monsters show up and Raftalia does like the omae wa shinderu, and one hit slash kills them. But no, for Ren, it takes like 2 or 3.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, yeah, it seems kind of weird to have the sword hero being beaten by a little demi-human girl. So, yeah, I'd go, you know what? Let's go with the left hook. Character of the episode, Kung Fu Grandma.
Okay.
Kung Fu Grandma. And so out of 5, what would we give this?
I would give it a 5.
You'd give it a 5? I'm going to give it a 4.5 because the squabbling did get annoying.
Yeah, but it did have its moments.
It had its moments, but the squabbling kind of get annoying to me.
Yeah.
Just because I'm like, Mine, shut up and killing things.
Yeah. No. Can we just throw her off the boat?
Well, I mean, everybody would want to, except for Motoyasu, because
True.
Motoyasu is a S-I-M-P! He's a simp! Or, as I've called him in the past, a cuck! So that being said, let's go into episode 12, The Raven Invader. So this episode kind of has 2 halves to it. The first half is the confrontation with the mysterious woman who is in a kimono and has, like, Metal Combat fans. So basically, she's Katana from Mortal Kombat. So she has, like, fans that are blades, and in turn challenges the shield hero to a fight, which supposedly might end the wave. I don't know. They weren't clear about this, but we also learned that her name is Glass. She doesn't say anything other than that. And so everybody starts attacking her, and she, safe to say, is taking everybody to school.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Like, did any of the other heroes get the upper hand?
Not really.
No, I think they all got trashed very, very, very hard. And Naofumi was getting trashed too. I should point that out also. He was getting trashed, but he could defend the attacks. So he was able to still protect Raftalia and Philo, but he was not able to protect the other ones from getting thoroughly owned. And in fact, the fight gets so bad that that Naofumi runs. Like, he tells it knocks out Philo. And by the way, I should also point this out. Apparently now, when he calls forth the Rage Shield, it has an adverse effect to Philo where she gets super angry. So
she goes into rage mode.
Yeah, she goes into Berserker mode as well.
Mm-hmm.
So she tries to attack Glass and gets one shot. And I should also point out, Naofumi even tries his new trick on her, the Iron Maiden. Doesn't do anything. In fact, on his game interface, it says attack failed. So at that point, that's when he decides to run. He does a fast heal on Philo, and they hop on Philo and they run. They book it as hard as they can away from this fangirl of death. And eventually she stops chasing them because she basically says, like, I've run out of time, and then teleports away. And that's around the same time that the wave ends. So the presumption there, because Naofumi also saw like a new timer come up on his game interface, that the waves have a time limit, and maybe the time limit ran out, and so that's at least what Naofumi starts thinking on the matter. But now that the wave is over, they start picking up the pieces. They start rebuilding the village. Naofumi regroups with the other villagers, and they have a good reunion. And I believe they do not get teleported, because the captain of the castle guards basically says that the king wants to see him. This is gonna go so well. Just really quick before we go into the second half of this episode, what did you think of that fight with Glass?
Well, you're going to have some type of a...
I mean, I like actually having this happen from time to time. It's kind of the Dragon Ball formula, where the next big villain comes along, kicks the crap out of Goku, and then Goku has to go get stronger. The same thing is kind of happening here, but I like how they're approaching it, which is they're trying to understand why she was so powerful, why she had to challenge the shield hero, because it almost made it sound like if she were to kill the shield hero, maybe she would have won the wave, and maybe that would have worked the other way around. Naofumi, if he beat Glass, may have won the wave himself.
And it was really interesting that she just finds that the shield hero was the more worthy opponent compared to the other.
The only reason that he was a worthy opponent was because he could take her attacks.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only reason. Because Raftalia and Philo were... And here's the thing. We see the level interface. He's like level 38. They're 40. So they're stronger than him, technically, and they couldn't do anything against Glass.
True. But she even thought even the other three heroes were like, you guys are
I think that's even more credence to the theory that they are weaker than the shield hero at this point. I really wish we could see their game interface and see what level they are. I really do wish we could see it. Because I almost wonder if maybe they're lower than the shield hero, and I'm saying by like, I don't know, 10 levels. So like maybe they're 28. So they would have been the same level as the loot villagers, who were all like basically between 24 and 27. So the other heroes might be as strong as that.
True. Unless, of course, if they are maybe close to the same level as Raftalia and...
Maybe.
But maybe they're just...
That's what I'm saying.
Their defense is just not as great as his.
Yeah, that would make sense.
So,
but the other thing, too, is, again, I would really like to see their interfaces. I want to see where they are in terms of leveling, because they've had nothing holding them back. They could go in solo and be fine, whereas Naofumi didn't have that option. He had to enlist Raftalia. So at that point, okay, I think we covered the first half of the episode fairly well.
Mm-hmm.
I actually like the introduction of Glass. It gives something interesting to the waves.
She kind of reminds me of Kagura from...
A little bit, yeah.
Inuyasha, where she's like the...
I'd say Kagura has a little bit more personality than Glass, but this is...
But true, but she just kind of seems like the...
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. Is like, this is the first time we've seen Glass, and I've seen Kagura's entire appearances throughout Inuyasha. So going into the second half of the episode, we have a private audience between the Shield Hero and King Altcray, where he sees the Iron Maiden that the Shield Hero pulls out, which, by the way, shocked the other heroes too. And so at that point, we find out that this entire session is to chastise the Shield Hero for being stronger. Because it looks almost like, yeah, the Shield Hero is stronger than the other ones. And in turn, what Altcray also wants to know is how he got that power. And I gotta be honest, the way that Naofumi responded was gold.
Oh yeah, that was
Where he's like, well, in my world, the custom is if you want to know that stuff, you gotta come and bow to me, bow at my feet.
Mm-hmm.
And the king just gets pissed at that. Oh
yeah.
And in turn, like, Naofumi kind of realizes he doesn't really have a reason to be here. So Altcray tries to get a little bit more reaction out of him by saying, well, I can't punish you, but I can punish your slaves. To which he gets the worst murder death stare that Naofumi can muster, and basically says, if you lay one finger on them, you will get nothing but hell from me. Like, basically threatening that you will have wished I killed you by the end of it. Kind of thing. Which I thought was, again, another really good thing for Naofumi to do, because the king is a pissant. Safe to say, he is a real pissant. What's interesting, though, is when he leaves the room, a noblewoman comes up to him and kind of warns him about who the true enemy might be in the kingdom, and is holding up the pendant that we've seen associated with the church. And if you look at it, it actually has what appears to be all but one of the cardinal weapons. Because it has, like, the tip of the spear, it has the sword, it has the bow in between, but a lot of people would say, like, well, but it's got a shield in there. The shield is round. So at that point, it's not really signifying, because everything else looks like the other weapons, except this round thing. There's no other marking of the shield on it. Did you find that interesting?
I just couldn't see the pendant.
Okay, yeah. You might want to pay attention to that, because it's actually interesting in this. But she basically says maybe the church is a bigger threat than the king is. And so Naofumi takes that to heart and starts preparing for his next journey, which is going to be to the nation of Shield Frieden, which is a demi-human nation, to go see if they can use their Dragon Hourglass to do the class upgrades. So he goes to prepare for that journey, and the next guest of Altcray is Melty. And Melty has just barely heard that of their exchange and wants King Altcray to apologize, which he refuses and doesn't see a need to be able to do it, which Mine comes in and kind of sides with him, saying, why should he have to apologize to this horrible shield hero? And properly gets schooled by Melty because Melty doesn't want to take any of her sister's advice. And I don't know if you notice this, but whenever somebody burns Mine, she takes it very personally.
Mm-hmm.
And so she has that kind of look, and Melty leaves because she sees no point in talking to the king about this. Instead, decides to go talk to the shield hero. We get a little interlude scene here where one of the queen's ninjas is reporting in and says that Melty wasn't really able to do anything with the king, and everything that she's basically saying about the shield hero not trusting the royal family, the queen seems to understand. Like, it and this is one of the things that I kind of like about this, is, like, the queen is seeing it from Naofumi's perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she's empathizing with him. She's not sympathizing with him. She's empathizing.
Mm-hmm.
Saying, you know what? If I was in these circumstances, I probably wouldn't trust anybody either. So, like, you do have that moment where people think that Naofumi's being too harsh, but then you have the reaffirm of the queen saying, well, I kind of get it. So she tells them to go back to work and just kind of hopes that the shield hero will forgive the kingdom. And we go back out to the road where I guess they're getting ready to go to a border, and they've stopped to camp for the night, which in turn, Naofumi's party notices. By the way, the Loot Village people are not with them. So again, this is like, they have duties in the castle to do. So at that point, when the waves are happening, then they join him. But until then, it's our favorite three. all together again. And so they notice that a carriage with a royal escort is coming. Turns out that it is Melty, and Melty basically tries to ask the shield hero to forgive the king and to get along with them better.
I probably wouldn't, just because it's like, well, why would I want to go and apologize if he's gonna?
Especially if you weren't the one who did anything wrong. Which Naofumi very much is in that case. He didn't really do anything wrong, right? So at that point, he continues to reject the offer, and it's actually kind of cute. Melty continues to get even more irritated with Naofumi's snide responses on how he's not going to go back to the king to apologize or anything like that. And she's trying to get him to work with the kingdom because the kingdom is how you get rewarded. And that's how you can continue questing. I love the fact that he actually kind of throws that in her face. He's like, I don't even need the king because I've got these thriving businesses. Like, completely forgetting the fact that, oh yeah, by the way, I don't need his rewards. I can go around and get rewards if I want to. So I like that concept. But after that one, Melty starts kind of, melting down. Because she's running out of arguments, and she's trying her best. But Naofumi starts to notice he's got a bad feeling. Kind of like that one time. And the one time he's talking about is when Mine had him arrested and all that. And then he notices that one of the other guards behind Melty draws his sword and is about to kill Melty. And so immediately he takes the shield, protects her, and that's where the episode ends, on a cliffhanger. We don't know what's happening here. We can guess. In fact, before we get into our final evaluation, what do you think is happening?
Well, something's being set up because they were holding that one of those crystal ball things, and I think they were trying to somehow stage to make it look like he was gonna.
Yes, I kind of wondered about that too, because we see how Alt-Cray learns of the Iron Maiden because he gets a crystal ball given to him, which shows the events. And yeah, so you see that crystal ball almost as if they're recording it for some reason. Do you think the soldier was acting alone, or do you think he was acting on orders? And if so, by who?
Well, I think he was definitely doing it by somebody.
So who do we think made the order, the king or Mine? I'm going to say Mine, personally. I think Melty pissed her off, and so she did that. Because here's the thing. Alt-Cray is pissed at the shield hero. But he is an absolute simp when it comes to his daughters.
True.
I don't see him making the order to kill Melty. I do see Mine making that order.
Oh, yeah.
And maybe not even telling Motoyasu about it. So that's what you think? He's being set up?
Oh, yeah.
Again.
Because it would be like, well, if she dies, then that would give even more reason for
that would make Mine the crown princess. Because that's the only other heir, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. There's a bunch of things that could go wrong about it. But, how do we think that Naofumi's going to react to this? Because maybe now he has to protect Melty?
It just kind of seems like he's like, oh, great, if they're going to try and set me up with her
I don't think
death.
I don't think he's going to take it well.
He's not going to take it well at first, but
no.
I think eventually maybe.
No, I don't think he's going to take it well at all. But this might just be what needs to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So, final things of the episode. What did this episode do good? What did it do bad? I think there are parts that drag in this episode, but not bad. Because everything is kind of placed in it for a reason, but there are some dragging moments. So I'll point that out. What about you?
It was a fine episode after the wave, you know.
Okay. Character of the episode. Naofumi. Just for the threats. Because I still think the king deserves every threat that Naofumi gives him. So that's me. What about you?
I mean, that was a great moment, to be honest, you know.
It was.
Second, I'd probably give it to Melty.
Melty for her meltdown, yeah. Yeah, that was actually really good. She was running out of arguments, and it's like it's almost like you can see her brain just turning to mush because she's like, wait, that didn't work. No, that didn't work. No, that didn't work. And she even tries to bring Philo to her side, and that doesn't necessarily work out.
But poor Philo wants to.
Poor Philo wants to be with, like wants to play with Melty, but poor Melty, she was just brain absolutely fried. So yeah, I'd give the second one to Melty.
Mm-hmm.
Out of 5, what would we give this?
4.5 probably.
I'm gonna give it a 4. I'm gonna give it a 4 simply because it does have some dragging moments, and it would have been great if things kind of. The problem is that with Glass, like that whole section where nobody's landing a hit that is doing anything to her, eventually that can be boring. And that's kind of what happened here is like as soon as you see all the heroes wrecked and Naofumi decides to pull out the Iron Maiden and it doesn't work. I actually think it would have been a better idea if he tried to do it again and it didn't come. So at that point he's like, oh, I have to do something in order to be able to make this work. So I'll give it a 4, and you gave it a 4.5.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and that's going to go ahead and do it for these episodes. Thank you guys so much for listening to this podcast. Hopefully you guys are enjoying the series right along with us, either if it's your first time or if you're rewatching it for the podcast. That'd be awesome. I'd love to hear about that in the comments section. And also, if you liked what you heard, feel free to be able to go over to our RSS feed and subscribe to geekynro.libsyn.com, where you guys can check out more episodes of Geek News Marathon Night that we covered with Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood and G Gundam, as well as the Geek News Anime Night that we have of Fruits Basket Season 3, which in turn, this will be important to you guys, the next Geek News Anime Night is going to be Rising of the Shield Hero Season 2. So we will be taking that on episode by episode, so stay tuned for that, as well as the regular GNRO podcast that you guys can listen to, as well as Geek News Movie Night and all the other things that we do on that RSS feed. Or and also you can access the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, Spotify, and Player.fm. Or if you're coming from the RSS side, you guys can join us also on my YouTube channel, Drac2326, where I also do a little bit of live stream Let's Play content, specifically where myself and Andrea are actually making our way through the God of War series in preparation for God of War Ragnarok. So you guys can join us for that, or we actually last year finished up Horizon Zero Dawn, including the Frozen Wilds, and last Saturday we got to try out Forbidden West for the first 3 hours. So you can check out either way of those things, and thank you guys so much for your continued support. We really do appreciate it. And for myself and for Andrea, we will see you guys next time as we tackle Rising of the Shield Hero, episodes 13 through 15. We'll see you then.